Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle remembering President George H.W. Bush in his passing. Mostly they're remembering his humility in office. With that, we bring in California Congressman John Garamendi live from the Reagan National Defense Forum in Simi Valley, California. Boy, Congressman, humility is not normally a term, present company excluded, of course, that you equate with politicians and presidents. You experienced it firsthand from President Bush. You're a young California legislator there with your daughter, and here he is taking a lot of time with you.
Well, we were at the White House. It was one of those events where California legislators were in Washington doing our thing, trying to figure out what to do. And we had a White House reception. And we were all, reading. He came across the room. My young daughter, one of the youngest kids there, went up to her, bent down, talked to her. And you could just see this guy was connecting with youth of all ages. And I heard other stories today from other representatives who had similar experience. This was a guy that was not taken with himself or taken by the position, but he knew that he was a human, he was a father, and just very, very kind. He was also very courageous. Obviously in war, those stories are well known, but courageous in the political sector in a way that he did what the country needed to do, even though politically it was very damaging to him.
You talked about his time in war, but it was something that he would never talk about. In the words of Andrew Ferguson, someone who worked for him, he said, trying to get George H.W. Bush to give a speech and talk about his time in war, getting shot down, volunteering to be one of the youngest naval aviators ever. He said an accurate account of his service, you can look up the details, would sound like bragging. And boy, now it's just the opposite in Washington. Where'd we all go wrong?
Well, I don't know where we went wrong. Just an extraordinary individual who was perhaps different from most. He knew who he was. He was comfortable in his own skin. He had obviously done what was courageous, and he knew it, but he didn't need to brag about it. And I think that's not uncommon among military men and women that have returned from combat that performed courageously or heroically. They're not going out and talking about it all the time. They did what they did it, they took their own pride in it, but they didn't need to strut their stuff. They were quite happy with who they are in their own skin, satisfied with what they had accomplished.
Yeah, after he received the Distinguished Flying Cross, he said, people talk about, wow, you're a hero. Well, there's nothing heroic about getting shot down, and I wondered why I was spared. When two friends in the plane with me were killed, I don't know the answer, why I had been spared, and what did God have for me. This is the last of a combat veteran to be president of the United States. If you think about those who preceded him, it all served in the military in different capacities. You think about Eisenhower, you think about Kennedy in that legacy as well. Is that service to country missing now with too many of our politicians?
No, actually it's not. The Republicans have, over the years, recruited and brought into Congress and the Senate veterans from really the Iraq I period. This year, the Democrats were very, very successful in recruiting and bringing into the Congress a whole cadre of very skilled veterans from the various wars of the last 2 decades. Many of them women who were actually serving in combat. Obviously, there's a senator who lost her legs in combat in Iraq I.
And to your point, all of them, when you talk to them, speak about their willingness to work across aisles with fellow veterans. Exactly. It seems to be a common theme among them. Congressman, appreciate you being with us, sir. Thank you, and for your memories as well.
Thank you.
Good to see you, sir.
Thank you for making this all of our memories.